Hello everybody, welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is the project stream, part 65. And I'm gonna jump right into what I'm working on today, which is this right here. Getting further and further along, as you could see, getting more flat colors down, and really that's what I'm focusing on as much as possible right now, is just laying down flats. And I'm going to continue to do that with this guy right here in the background, who I had the idea of him like trying to pick the lock of this door, figure out like what's there. So like while people are just like completely consumed by technology and these glasses that you see on them, he's like busying himself trying to get these locks picked. Now I have the people on a different layer because, as you notice, like when I erase any mistakes, things that I don't like, I'm not erasing the background. And that's a huge time saver. Just want to make sure that it selects the colors, which is great. It's doing that. It's kind of cool to see what everything looks like without the lines. But I'm not really set on any specific color just yet. I do want to make good choices though, just to save myself more time, as I start to pick at the final colors towards the end. And I believe that's going to take some time as well. I mean, maybe not as much as laying down all these flats, but it's going to be challenging because, you know, if I change one color around, it's going to affect the palette of the entire drawing. You know, if I change like the color of the awning for this building, in the Porky's building, that's going to have like a change of pretty centralized color, I think. It's going to change the entire feel of the image. So it's probably going to be pretty time consuming, and that's kind of the reason why I'm trying to make the best color choices now, so that the harmony of everything is closer to where I'm going to want it to be. And I'm kind of liking the yellow. Like that looks cool. And I like how it kind of brings things around, because there's this guy right here on the left side, and he has like a yellow scarf. There's that yellow arrow, the yellow screen that I'm gonna have to color, that I'm gonna have to do that with. Then there's like the yellow of the paper from Porky's, and like I guess that's like grease dripping off of it. That yellow to gradually going from that greenish yellow to his scarf and the taxi, as well as like the building. So it just kind of unifies that color, all going all the way around. You know, if you want to start with the guy's scarf on the left to the woman's neck accessory, to all the way to the right side with that guy's yellow scarf as well. It's kind of unifying. But I do believe I'm going to work a little bit more on the backgrounds, the buildings in the background. Just not satisfied with the colors. I think they're a little too, I don't know, they're a little too loud. The yellows are a little too loud, but we'll see. You know, it might at the end, after I pretty much draw everybody else or color everybody else. It's really going to define that more. Alright, so I'm going to give him, I mean, he's already a very distinct looking guy, but I don't think he's, I don't think that he's too worried about being identified. Everyone's kind of asleep. You know, they're entrenched in the technology. That's one of the reasons why he's just like, hey, I'm just gonna do this in daylight, out in the open. Like, who's gonna pay attention? And even if they did, they'd probably just like go about doing their own thing anyway. Let's see how that looks. It's alright. But magically, it can be changed. I'm gonna hide the selection to get a better view. It's a little distracting. The selection border is hid now. I'm gonna go and change the color. That's kind of cool. And that's even cooler. I can give him more of a subdued color, but I'm gonna play around with other colors to see how it works. So far the turquoise color is pretty good. It's won me over. And kind of this like purplish blue. You know, it's not violet, it's not in the violet pink range. It's very much like in a blue purple. So it doesn't blend too much in with the background building. It's kind of what I'm trying to avoid. Even though it would be technically useful for this guy since he's trying to pick the lock of this place. That's also not bad. Blue and yellow look pretty nice, and then that red with the yellow and works as well. I'm gonna stick with it for now. I'm probably gonna change, let's see, I'm gonna change the hair color maybe, because it looks a little too bright for my taste. But I think red, red is the choice here. Just less saturated. I also don't mind that. That looks kind of cool. It's like a red pink. I wanted to give him like a really pale skin color. And some brown cutoff gloves. Is that gonna work? Let's find out. It looks alright. I am bugged by the shadows for his back right here. I think I'm gonna do a little bit more work on the lines. Like, it just doesn't make sense that there's shadows here but not going further down. Yeah, I think there should be more. Shadow formation here. So kind of want to give him like this crease for his jacket where the arm or the shoulder is. And also, I'm not too crazy about these lines here. I think I could do better. I don't know. Kind of like it the way it was here. On a different note, I did start watching a new series called Peripheral on Amazon Prime, and I am really enjoying it. It's very cool, very futuristic concepts. There's some familiar actors in it, but I just can't place my finger on like where I've seen them before. There you go. I knew I did some work on that smoke. Yeah, there's some familiar faces there. The acting is pretty decent. Yeah, I can't complain so far. I haven't really seen anything that that put me off. I just realized maybe instead of brown, it'll be gray. Just like increase the brightness on it a little bit so you can still see. I think that's better, right? Yeah, not too bad. But yeah, Peripheral is really interesting. So far, it follows this young family, I guess. They're pretty, it's a brother and sister. They're taking care of their mother. And it's the future, and they're able to jump into these like virtual realities that have some challenges there, and those challenges reward them with money. And of course, there's like a crazy amount of inflation where it's like, I don't know, like one pill costs $10,000 or some ridiculous thing like that. So yeah, they're going into these programs and they're doing these different missions or whatever, and at some point it started to shift. what they were doing through these programs became kind of questionable in terms of reality as well. So I'm not going to ruin it too much, but check that out. It's really interesting. It's called Peripheral, and I'm actually going to be catching up with it tonight. I started it late last night, watched a little bit of it, so I'm going to continue the rest of it tonight. Uh-oh. I'm working on backgrounds when I'm on a people's lair. Trying to avoid doing that. Let me just make sure, and so far so good. Doesn't look like I've done it on any other layer. Ooh, and also yes, pants. I forgot about that. So for a second, I'm going to go to the store layer and fill in these areas that I'm noticing now. Bottom over there, and then, yeah, this is where this guy's hair is. That's what I was working on before. It's these kind of things that I wanted to avoid when it came to the background, like this area. You know, that would have been, I think, even more tedious. Like, I don't mind this. This is just like light little touch-ups, but I think I would miss a lot more if it had to do with like the sky and all those things in between. Not too worried about this. It's kind of like fun, you know. You're at the end, like I think at the end, at the very end, I'm going to spend more time making these little corrections here and there, because there's nothing real that's really complicated about it. I've been looking at my old stuff, and I'm at that stage where I'm like, I need to up things, you know, like it's that, like when I first completed them, the stuff that I've done in the past, when I first completed it, I'm like, oh, this looks great, you know, and that's usually it's kind of the response I would get. I would really get a kick out of the turnout. But now, and I think that's just because I've tried to push a little bit harder this time with this image, that I'm looking at the old ones and I'm like, man, you made so many mistakes here, and then there's this, and then there's that, and I'm starting to like nitpick all those things. But I'm always happy about that, because it means that I'm learning new things. Had it not been that I learned new things, I probably wouldn't have noticed those things to begin with. So despite me nitpicking that stuff and being unsatisfied with my current I guess my current profile or portfolio, I'm gonna head over to the people's layer before I forget. Alright, so for his pants, I keep pushing brown. So let me see what it looks like with pants being brown. But that's not going to be good, because I want to make her hair... Actually, no, her hair doesn't have to be. I kind of want to give him like this rogue sort of look. okay, I'm all right with it. And I think I'm just gonna start working on the next person, which is gonna be her, right in front of him. And the question is gonna be, what color hair? I want to say purplish. So in the midst of all this uniqueness that every single person has, I think it's kind of interesting how externally people are different looking, but internally they're all doing the same thing. They're just like in this robotic state where they're just like plugged into these devices, and that's all they're focused on. Usually uniqueness is internal, and external is just like a way to emphasize it more. But capitalism has weaponized that as well, and they're just giving people opportunities to look unique, while brainwashing them all to think, act, and believe in the same thing. Behave very similar. You know, it's funny, I just recently saw another protest that was going on where activists, they threw food on a painting behind glass, and you know, they were talking about, or trying to get everybody's attention, like, hey, pay attention to this, like, things are getting worse and worse, like, don't wait for the last minute or have another pandemic where everybody's locked down again. You know, I think a lot of people just forgot about that as things moved on, and they want to move on, so they just kind of ignored, like, what the hell that happened, you know, what was all that, and where was the responsibility of all the people who were supposed to take care of the economy? You know, like, people just kind of gloss over it now, I think. But yeah, those activists were just trying to like be like, hey, you know, pay attention, these things are happening because of political negligence, because people who are supposed to be taking care of the economy, who are supposed to take care of our needs and make sure things are stable, aren't doing it. And they're all just concerned about money, and that's all they give a shit about. Like, they don't care about you, or they don't care about me. And people are outraged. They're like, how can this person throw food on this painting, and it's so stupid that they're doing that, and so on and so forth. They're lashing all these activists. Meanwhile, they're being completely exploited by the system, by all those people. They're not outraged by that. They're not outraged at how little politicians gave a shit about people at the time of the peak of the pandemic, and what kind of corruption has come from that, and you know, how poorly they've handled everything, and how intentionally they made things even more difficult throughout the time. They're not that outraged by it. But food thrown on a painting that's behind glass, even to note, is outrageous. You know, there are people who are expressing real strong opinion about it, and it's just, they're so brainwashed. It's kind of funny and sad at the same time. It's like their priorities about what is considered to be shocking and unacceptable is completely distorted. It makes absolutely no sense, and it was just really funny to me when I saw it. But at the same time, I was just like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, wake up, pay attention to what's really important. Nobody in that industry is ever going to reveal to you the truth about any of those things, because it's going to compromise their position. It's going to compromise the fact that they're not doing their job, and that they're pocketing a lot of the taxes, and they're pocketing a lot of the profits that they're gaining from all these oil companies that are dumping things in water because they want to like cut corners and save more money, and of course they're doing all sorts of cutting corners to save as much money as possible. Yeah, that's not outrageous. That's totally fine. It's so ridiculous. It just brings this idea back to like how programmed people are. You know, their outrage and focus is completely warped. And of course, you know, there's also people who want to derail the focus by being outraged about something, and basically like allowing people to vent their frustration onto something else. And people are following the responses from, let's say, really popular people or really rich people, and they're like, oh, if they're outraged, I should be outraged. You know, like there are people who are so obsessed with celebrity life that it's basically their compass towards everything. Like if that person's outraged, I'm outraged. If they're sad, I'm sad. You know, like there's no critical thinking and individualistic thinking, but they will absolutely try to present themselves as like very unique people who think for themselves and who are better than, right, that whole culture that they're brainwashed to like believe in and interact in that direction. You know, it's just jumbled up. Like the inconsistency in people's perception is huge, and I think that really distinguishes people who are well aware and informed, and those who are not, or the ones who are paying attention to the consistency in their beliefs and their behaviors towards others and other people's behaviors towards them, like not just in one direction. Not just in like the behavior of others. You know, I think that really distinguishes it. Alright, I could actually change this as well. Let me see actually what I could do, because it's gray. I can't really... Yeah, I can't really do much with that. I think it has to be a different option. Is it color balance? I guess so. Because once I change that, then I could start doing things like this. Boom. Now I could change around all these colors. But I did want to make it look like a breastplate. Maybe if I, well, no, it's too late. I'm just going to change it for the sake of being able to do something with it later. Lots of lime colors there. that kind of works. I'm just gonna keep it there for now. And also correct some places. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to that sort of stuff. You know, people not refusing to see like the real problem, and I think that has to do with complacency. Like they're complacent, you know, having to have this like rhythm or routine that they're in, as opposed to having to really think about stuff and, you know, recognize how stressful that reality is. Having to like worry about like what to, like, people don't want to do that. And a lot of it also has to do with how little time they have for themselves. You know, if they're coming in from work and they've basically worked all day from the time they got up, which is 7 o'clock, right? Or 6 o'clock in the morning. Some people are getting up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Working all day, then coming back home, you know, they don't have a lot of time to actually sit there and focus and stress about all that stuff. Like, that's even more frustrating. You know, you have your entire day that you spend, you're working, you get frustrated there, then you come home and you're stressed out by politicians exploiting everybody and doing all this crap, you know. So I get that, but at the same time, the reason why things ended up bubbling into a pandemic is because people didn't do anything about all that, or they didn't care to hold them accountable for things, and it spiraled out into that. So, you know, you can't really control the actions of others like that, but you can do it through voting them out, kicking them out, you know, not giving them the position that allows them to exploit things like that. By coming together and making a ruckus. And I think, well, that's what those activists were doing, basically. They were just like, nope, I'm not going to let people continue to do that stuff. And I don't want to feel like I'm responsible for the catastrophes that happen to my kids in the future and all these other things. Like, they're starting to recognize the responsibility they have and shaping things, and pretty much everybody has that. I mean, the idea of voting kind of emphasizes that. You know, the more and more people do it, those numbers collect. You don't have to be like, you know, incredibly rich to influence. You just have to go and put in your vote, you know. And while that is effective, I still think it has a lot of loopholes in it. And at the moment, it's like, yeah, that's something that we should consider. But if it doesn't work, then we definitely need to do something about it. Like, we have to start, as people, create change. I mean, I think that should be done regardless. As I mentioned, your entire day is spent on being exploited, basically, where you're making very little money. And I'm saying this for the general amount of people. Of course, there's people who are making a lot of money, or they're having a great life. But things like the pandemic, things like wars that are created, it is because more and more people who are in their comfortable positions don't really do anything to improve or influence or band together with people to create that sort of change. You know, so everybody has a sense of responsibility, regardless of what your title is, regardless of how successful you are. You still play a role in how the economy is shaped, how people's lives are shaped, what sort of rights and what kind of like general, I'm gonna say like ethos, right? Like how people see each other, how they treat each other. You know, all that really all that really matters. You know, as you could see, when somebody who's like really influential decides on a certain behavior, then it ripples through and everybody else kind of starts acting that way or thinking the way that they do. And that's really dangerous if it goes in the wrong direction. You know, if people are that gullible where they don't even think critically, or they're just like, you know, they have this like gang mentality or whatever, it becomes a huge problem. And you don't want to turn into like a desensitized person who doesn't care about anything or have any emotions about anything, or regardless of what's going on, the sort of atrocities and how terrible things are for people who are getting more and more people, you just don't care anymore. Like, that's part of being a sociopath. Like, I think developing that indifference is also developing sociopathy. Like, you're not moved by anything, and none of those things matter, you know. It becomes really problematic, and it ripples through everybody, you know. So like when the pandemic hit, and you know, people were just dropping like flies everywhere, and people were like, well, it's not me, up until the point where it started to reach them, you know, and the people that they were surrounded by, you know, that's why it happened. It didn't just miraculously happen. It happened because more and more people were indifferent. They didn't care to wear masks because it wasn't affecting them until it started to, you know. So it's just, I think in some ways that scenario, even though it happened before in the past, it just showed that we're not immune to things like that, you know, that regardless of how much time has passed, it could it could rack up again. You know, it could become that issue again. And I think a lot of people assume that, you know, oh, well, you know, the death plague was a long time ago, and it was because people didn't have what we have now, and they didn't have as much technological advancement, and people weren't as smart as people are now. And then, of course, that was disproven. So yeah, basically what I was getting at is that you really can't be indifferent to those kind of things. And just being conscious and like doing research yourself, and you know, not just relying on news agencies or whatever, especially because they're fearmongers, and there's gangs within that where it's like, oh, we're just going to support this group regardless of what, you know. All morality aside, it doesn't matter. It's all just about sticking to your group or whatever, that nonsense. So it's hard to trust those kind of places, and especially if they're capitalist and they're concerned about ratings, and they're concerned about debts to other contributors. Let's say they have people who are contributing to them, or who are donors, I guess, and supporters of, whether it's the company as a whole or individual people who pull the strings, you know, that's also a problem. It's not just Nah, that doesn't work. Yeah, it's not just the company, you know, or the CEOs of the company. It's there's a lot that is tangled into it all. Man, this is challenging. I'm trying to pick the right colors here. How's that go? I'm not happy with it. Well, just gonna do it for now. Just gonna do it. I'm just gonna fill it in with the solid and then change it around. But yeah, just bringing it all back around, you know, to the idea of the activists, people being outraged for the wrong reasons. This like opposing kind of view that most people, nobody wants to be like, yeah, I'm a pawn, you know, I'm this like brainwashed person who's just following things because I've been told to by this group. Like nobody's gonna, first of all, admit to it or even think of themselves in that light. But they're also they also want to be considered individual and like, oh, I have a very unique perspective, or I'm a very unique person in some way. You know, there's also that side of that comes clashing with their behavior. So it's like these two contradictory sort of realities, where on one hand, you know, you see a lot of these people who are being disproven, and despite being disproven, they're still sticking to the hive mind mentality of things. You know, they're being disproven not by a group, they're being disproven by facts, they're being disproven by studies, you know, all that stuff. And regardless of that, you know, things that they believed in prior to any sort of strife, you know, political strife or confrontation and stuff, they adamantly believe it still. But now that they're being you know, their hive mind is being questioned, they're just refusing to acknowledge any sort of fact. So it's like these two really, again, it's really opposing realities. Like, yes, I'm unique, but I'm also dedicated to the hive mind, that regardless of what is being said or done, I'm going to be totally devoted to them. You know, but I'm unique. I have a unique state of mind, and I have ability to rationalize and reason. It's so bizarre. But I think that's a mark of insanity, where what you think you are and how you actually are two totally different things, and not recognizing that. You know, that's usually the case with people who are cuckoo. You know, for example, in that movie, Seven, right, there was a guy, and it was played by Kevin Spacey, who was like going around murdering people because of their immoral actions and their stupidity and all that other stuff. But then if you reflect on it, it's like, you're walking around murdering people. Like, what morality are you basing things off of? Like, you're making absolutely no sense. It's like contradictory viewpoints that exist at the same time, and it just creates like a nonsensical person. That's crazy. If that's not crazy, then what is, right? And yeah, when he was questioned, when he was caught finally, and he was questioned, and he started saying like, this person, and he was adamantly like angry that this person was doing this, and they were disgusting, and they were doing that, and so on and so forth. It's like, you just murdered somebody. That's insane. You just killed somebody because they don't meet your standard. that is mark of an insane person. You know, but in their head they were thinking they were morally superior or better, and that gave them the right to like murder people. You know, so it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And the same thing with in modern time now, right? There's like people who are going around shooting, murdering people because they have such easy access to guns, and there's like no standard to purchase one. And you got those supporters who are saying, oh, you know, we don't want to kill babies, like we don't want to murder babies. Meanwhile, they're allowing people to go around with guns and shoot up elementary schools. You know, again, two opposing points of views. And when they're confronted and they're like, hey, make the laws stringent so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen, they start thinking about some other things like profits and, you know, making more money off guns, and they're so on and so forth. Suddenly, this idea of how wrong it is to kill and babies and how important they are is out the window. So again, really contradicting points of views existing at the same time. It's crazy. That's a mark of a crazy person, like where they don't have any accountability for anything, and they just like one day they feel like it, one day they don't, next thing they feel like it, then they don't. And it's like, that's not how society works. That's not how civilization develops. It's not how progress is. Absolutely insane people. So they have that in common. You know, they're acting like totally crazy people while trying to think that they are not programmed, they're individualistic, that they think critically and they understand things beyond other people's understanding. Meanwhile, totally contradicting themselves in all sorts of ways. What color should I make that pouch? I don't know, maybe like a light yellow. But again, I could always change this up later. All right, ladies and gents, I am going to have to end the stream here for tonight. I will be back tomorrow for a special stream, and it's going to be a long one. I think it might go over. Really depends. I might just stick to an hour and divide it into 2 episodes instead of just 1. But I am very, very excited about it. I can't wait to share this stuff with you guys, to show you beautiful work, beautiful paintings, awesome artists, talking about their history, talking about history of illustration in general. It's going to be a blast. So just remember, tomorrow 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when the special stream is going to air. So check back in then. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you enjoy this content, just remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They are both greatly appreciated, and they help the stream grow and reach to more audience just like you. All right, everyone, take care, and I will see you tomorrow.